On February 5, 1945, in the depths of a Norwegian fjord, U-boat U-864, helmed by Captain Ralf-Reimar Wolfram, thundered out of Bergen on a mission that could shift the tides of World War II. With the Axis powers teetering on the brink of collapse, the Nazi war machine was banking on U-864 to deliver a cache of cutting-edge military tech promising to supercharge the Japanese war effort. Packed with the blueprints and parts for Jumo 004 turbojets, the makings of a next-gen Japanese jet fighter, and the critical components of V-2 ballistic missiles, not to mention a contingent of top-tier engineers versed in this tech, U-864 was a steel-clad lifeline for the Axis. However, Captain Wolfram and his crew soon steamed blind into a lethal trap. Having cracked the Enigma's secrets, the British had U-864 in their crosshairs. HMS Venturer, a top-of-the-line British submarine, was on the prowl, tasked with a single objective: to hunt down U-864 and consign her and her secrets to the abyss. As Wolfram plunged into the frigid waters, the weight of the entire conflict bore down on his shoulders. HMS Venturer's ASDIC sonar pinged through the depths in a desperate bid to find its target, gearing up for an unprecedented duel beneath the waves. History was about to witness the only underwater submarine clash ever recorded. Throughout history, underwater submarine battles have been more the stuff of novels and films than everyday reality, primarily due to the immense challenges of detecting and targeting another vessel in the deep, alongside the strategic roles submarines are designed to play. These stealthy vessels are built for surprise, equipped for espionage, and armed for strategic strikes, often avoiding direct confrontation to maintain the element of uncertainty and fear. As technology evolved, so too did the capabilities of these underwater hunters. From the early days of sonar detection to the advanced stealth technologies of modern nuclear-powered submarines, the art of underwater warfare has grown increasingly complex. This technological arms race has made submarines quieter, more elusive, and harder to detect, reinforcing their role as silent prowlers in the vast oceans. Consequently, direct sub-on-sub combat has remained a rare occurrence. During World War II, this rarity was even more pronounced. The technological limitations of the time made the idea of a submarine successfully hunting and engaging another submarine while both were submerged seem almost impossible. The sonar technology of the era was nascent. Torpedoes were designed primarily for surface targets, and the notion of calculating the complex trajectory for a successful underwater torpedo attack was daunting. Yet, amidst this backdrop of technological constraints and strategic caution, an exceptional event unfolded: the extraordinary encounter between the British HMS Venturer and the German U-boat U-864. This showdown seemed straight out of a sailor's wildest dreams, utterly inconceivable by the standards of the era. Yet, as U-864 slipped her moorings and eased out of Bergen in February 1945, the die was cast for an inevitable underwater duel. By February 1945, the Axis was against the wall. The Eastern Front had crumbled under the Soviet Union's relentless hammer blows, forcing German troops to beat a hasty retreat westward. Cities and industrial heartlands across Germany and its conquered territories were reeling from non-stop Allied bombing runs, leaving infrastructure in ruins and morale in the dust. Meanwhile, the Western Allies had smashed through the Siegfried Line, driving deep into the heart of Germany itself. Over in the Pacific, Uncle Sam was island-hopping his way to Japan, seizing strategic outposts and dealing crippling blows to the Japanese military machine. Within the Axis camps, the air was thick with tension. In Germany, despite Adolf Hitler's stubborn calls to fight to the bitter end, whispers of dissent and defeatism began to swirl as the grim reality of their predicament sunk in. In Japan, although the war machine's propaganda kept up a brave face, promising victory, a few top brass began to see the writing on the wall. Their situation was a ticking time bomb. Yet Hitler, ever more unhinged, clung to pipe dreams of secret weapons or a crack in the Allied front that could miraculously swing the war in their favor. He pinned his hopes on Germany's cutting-edge wonders, the V-1 and V-2 rockets raining terror from the skies, and the Messerschmitt Me-262, the globe's premier jet-powered fighter, betting on these marvels to turn the tide in a war that was all but lost. As the Allies tightened their grip around Berlin, Hitler's darkest nightmares unfolded, yet he desperately clung to a sliver of baseless hope. His last-ditch strategy involved funneling Germany's advanced technological marvels into Japan's hands. If they could do that, maybe, just maybe, they could stretch the war out further, or even flip the script on the Allies. This desperate dice roll brought Operation Caesar to life, an all-in gambit to arm Japan with the pinnacle of German ingenuity as the Third Reich teetered on the brink of collapse. The vessel chosen for this mission was the U-boat U-864, a brand new Type 9D2 submarine, setting off on a do-or-die maiden voyage. Tailor-made for globe-spanning patrols, the 9D2 was a massive, self-reliant vessel, its design fine-tuned for long-haul journeys across the globe, boasting expanded cargo holds and cutting-edge tech. But U-864 wasn't just another sub. She was on a mission of paramount secrecy and urgency. In a bid to cloak her movements in the deepest shadows, she was kitted out with a state-of-the-art snorkeling mast, a marvel that let her intake fresh air while skimming just below the surface, minimizing the need to surface, and thereby dodge the Allied gaze during her nearly month-long odyssey. This trek across the world's waters was fraught with peril at every turn. Under the command of Captain Ralf-Reimar Wolfram, this steel behemoth was to navigate the treacherous waters north around Norway, slice through the icy embrace of the Arctic Circle, and skirt past the watchful eyes of the Soviets to deliver her precious cargo. From its very inception, Captain Wolfram's mission aboard U-864 was cursed with the spell of bad luck. Her maiden voyage from Kiel on December 5, 1944, was marred by an early setback when she ran aground navigating through the Kiel Canal. Opting for repairs, Wolfram made for Bergen, Norway, only to have their safe haven turn into a target. While nestled in Bergen, their armored pen was hammered by 12,000-pound tallboy bombs dropped from British Lancaster bombers on January 12, 1945, dealing a further blow to the already beleaguered submarine. Wolfram's plight was compounded by the fact that the British had long since cracked the Enigma code, the cryptographic backbone of German U-boat communications with Naval Command. By February, the Royal Navy had intercepted messages laying bare U-864's secret mission, prompting them to spring a trap. Enter HMS Venturer, the spearhead of the Royal Navy's new V-class submarines, tasked by the Royal Navy Submarine Command with the daunting task of hunting down and sinking U-864 off the coast of Fedje, Norway. Despite being outgunned with only 8 torpedoes to U-864's 22, Venturer boasted a significant edge in speed, cutting through the water at a brisk 10 miles per hour, nearly 50% faster than her quarry. Venturer took up her hunter's watch on February 6th, under the command of the young but highly decorated Lieutenant James S. Launders. A seasoned predator of the deep, Launders had already sent 12 Axis surface ships and the surfaced U-boat U-711 to their watery graves. Despite having the Aztec active sonar system at his disposal, which could cast sound waves far into the depths to echo off submerged vessels, Launders opted for the more discreet hydrophones instead. The Aztec's ping, while far-reaching, could also betray their position to an enemy listening in. However, Launders and his crew were unknowingly shadowboxing. U-864 had already ghosted past them, slipping silently through their net. It seemed Hitler's plan was going just as he had anticipated. U-864 had momentarily eluded the clutches of HMS Venturer when her diesel engine started coughing and sputtering, a mechanical betrayal that shattered her acoustic veil and threatened a complete breakdown. Only days into her journey, Captain Wolfram faced a critical decision. Opting for caution, he turned U-864 back toward Bergen for repairs, unaware that this move would steer his vessel straight into the lion's den. On February 9th, a keen-eared hydrophone operator aboard Venturer picked up a sound in the depths, initially mistaking it for the diesel hum of a fishing vessel. Launders, sensing an opportunity, nudged his submarine closer to investigate the noise. Through the periscope, what appeared to be the silhouette of another periscope emerged on the horizon, likely in truth the snorkel of U-864. Running silent on electric batteries, Launders masterfully maneuvered the Venturer into the shadows behind the German U-boat, tailing her prey with the patience of a panther. Anticipating U-864 would surface to recharge her batteries, Launders bided his time. But the German submarine, equipped with a snorkel, thwarted this expectation by staying submerged longer than anticipated. Soon, U-864 began a zigzag pattern, a clear sign that she had sniffed out the presence of a predator. As the clock ticked on, Venturer's own battery reserves dwindled, pressing Launders into a corner. The British submarine, too, would soon meet the surface. In a daring pivot, Launders resolved to strike at U-864 while she remained beneath the waves. He conjured a three-dimensional ambush, drawing on the snorkel's exposed tip to gauge the enemy's depth. Launders knew well that the launch of torpedoes would instantly give away their position, prompting evasive maneuvers from U-864. With this in mind, he crafted his attack plan, aiming to predict and counteract the German submarines' likely dodges. At precisely 12:12 p.m., HMS Venturer unleashed a calculated salvo, firing all 4 of her loaded torpedoes in a staggered formation, with a precise 17.5-second gap between each launch. Immediately after, the British sub dove deep to skirt any retaliatory strike. U-864, sensing the impending doom, executed a crash dive, coupled with a series of sharp, evasive maneuvers. Despite the crew's desperate efforts, within 4 harrowing minutes, they had narrowly avoided 3 of the torpedoes. Yet Launders, anticipating such a move, had dispatched the latter pair at varying depths. The 4th torpedo, diving deeper than the rest, found its mark, cleaving U-864 in 2 in a muffled underwater detonation. The sounds of bursting rivets and rending steel echoed through the Venturer's hydrophones, a morbid confirmation of the enemy's demise. The U-boat descended 150 meters to the sea floor, entombing all 73 souls aboard and plunging Operation Caesar into the depths of history. Though it hung by the slimmest thread of possibility, Operation Caesar represented one of Adolf Hitler's final gambles to turn the war's tide in his favor, a hope dashed decisively by Lieutenant James S. Launders and his crew aboard HMS Venturer. Their underwater duel in the icy waters off Fedja not only marked a significant technical achievement, but also snuffed out the flickering flame of one of the Third Reich's last hopes. Over 50 years later, in 2003, the Norwegian Navy stumbled upon the remains of U-864 off the coast of Fedja, resting 2 miles beneath the waves. Investigations revealed a sinister leakage of poisonous liquid mercury from its cargo, silently poisoning the ocean. After 15 years of weighing the perils of disturbing the wreck and its volatile, unexploded munitions, the Norwegian government, in February 2017, opted for a monumental solution. They entombed the shattered remains of U-864 under a protective layer of half a meter of sand, topped with 160,000 tons of rocks, sealing off the toxic menace.